We are the Keyboard Samurai, podcast about the business of cyber and tech, here to help you or your business improve. Here's your host, Wil Klu. Let's hack into it now. Hey, everybody, welcome back. Another exciting episode. This is going to be a good one for us, I think. We're going to be chatting about human-centric security, something near and dear to my heart. I think my master's thesis was actually on that somewhere around the long time ago, back in the dinosaurs were riding around the earth. So I'm happy to introduce Robert. Why don't you give us the 30 seconds of who you are and why we care?
Boston-based, never parked a car in Harvard Yard ever. And I've married, wife, and a couple kids. Been doing security awareness training for about 30 plus years. And we, do that both online and in person. And, I've seen it, been there, done that. And I see, with AI kicking in, or its hair, it's revitalized, this conversation.
For sure. I just want to start before we get into it, like the fact that you said in person and online, like I think that is so important. I think people don't realize how important it is to do face-to-face education. Like I've always advised like CISOs and security leaders I work with to, as part of their programs, to go and do one-on-ones with departments, right? Go and just talk to finance one day and then go talk to HR the other day, because when you have those people in a room who do the same job all the time, they care about the same thing. When you have the entire company in a room, they kind of not going to care. They're not going to raise their hand. You can talk about something else. But once it's all about this team's group, I'm a big fan of that, as well as just in general, like, somebody who tries to educate daily. It's really hard to teach people things sometimes, especially when it's not something that they're interested in. And you need the skill. Like if you really want to get to it, you have to have the skills to be able to educate and communicate to those people and make sure that they're understanding it and not just like watching the CBT. So I appreciate the in-person comment for sure.
Yeah, 100%. Prior to COVID, I was booming. I was on the road speaking, training, airports, hotels, rent a cars, the whole thing. COVID hit, and then flatline, right? I mean, I obviously did some, live virtual stuff for a few years that just kept me alive. But then like 2023 and a half, I started getting phone calls from, CISOs and so forth saying, hey, listen, like we've been doing the whole phishing simulation training thing. Like it's working for what the problems it solves. But what's not happening is our people still aren't interested. Like they don't care about security. We just want them to care. What can you do? And so, at first they were like, can we do something virtual? I'm like, yeah, I can do virtual. Certainly. I've been doing virtual, but like my philosophy is, and it has always been, that all security is personal. Like it's personal to you. Like security can be a scary thing to your learners, to your coworkers. Like they don't quite understand it the way that you and I do. Security is like, cybersecurity is like what, 30 plus years old?
Yeah, maybe, if that, sure.
If that, okay? And like, John McAfee kind of started things off like back in the mid to late 90s, right? And, and others, of course. And so security itself is thousands of years old, but we still don't truly get it as humans because we want to and need to trust each other. And that means that by default, like we don't want to think or believe that others mean to do us harm. And so as a result of that, like security isn't this natural and normal thing that we embrace because it's scary. It's about fear and worry and fraud and perpetrators and sociopaths and psychopaths. And who the hell wants to think that's going to happen to them? You cannot truly engage a learner by talking about that virtually.
It's interesting. I'm reminded of conversations I've had with my friends who are not in the industry, not even remotely into IT and with or cyber or anything. And we are so jaded. And when I kind of tell them the thing, like, all of the stuff that we know, like the whole, it's not if, it's when, and everybody's been breached. And they have no clue. And so if you take that, I think it's good for us as individuals to spend some time with people outside of our world and kind of have some of those conversations and realize because that will help you frame that conversation that you want to have with your employees internally. Like they don't understand, right? They don't, like you said, they don't get, I mean, I've talked to hundreds, thousands of people who are not in the industry when you're going and doing an event or educational thing or whatever. And the questions you get are just
basic.
Yeah, there's, I don't want to say silly because they're not, but they're uneducated. They don't know, right?
They don't know. And I don't know that I don't know that the security officers know that they don't know. Look at, I said this already. Part of my philosophy is that all security is personal to the learner, to them. And it begins with violence prevention, which is a scary thing, right? And then from there, it's personal to your identity, your social security number, your credit card information. And then of course, your data and your dollars. And most people don't know how to deal with any of the basics like password management and two-factor authentication, never mind dealing with, a sophisticated AI-based deep fake with, voice cloning. That's just, they're completely clueless in that regard. They're worried about how do I protect my credit cards, like the basic stuff. And so until we actually engage them in such a way that we've actually resolved their personal security issues. And I say we, if you're teaching them or engaging in phishing simulation training, but they don't know how to protect their own identity or credit cards for that matter, then how are they going to embrace the high-tech scammer that's in Southeast Asia and there's 2,000 of them on a compound that are using face overlay? How are we going to address that? We're not. You're not going to be able to get them to even care about security. Never mind actually solve the problem of phishing if they can't protect their own identities.
It's spot on because I've talked to people about this similar thing, right? As a consumer, as an end user, when your credit card gets breached, it's not that big of a deal. The bank stops it, they send you an email, you get your money back, and then you get a new card, right? So we as consumers outside of it don't see the problem. Now the bank's got a whole bunch of crap they've got to go do, or the credit union, whoever it is, it's really painful for them. So I think it's a good point to be able to take that. And I don't think I've ever done any type of cybersecurity education where people didn't ask me personal stuff like, hey, well, when I'm traveling, can I connect to Wi-Fi, or should I not check my Fidelity account here and all this, right? Or have my Facebook this or that. It always comes up, and it's great because, like you said, you need to make it personal about them. And I think having that aspect of, hey, this is something you can take with you and go tell your family as well, makes it a little I think it helps them care a little bit more.
Your coworkers, they don't know if it's okay to click a link in Google when they do a search.
Mm-hmm. And it's not always because paid ads.
They don't know what to do. They're that, I guess naive they are that digitally illiterate. And so part of cybersecurity training should be digital literacy. Mm-hmm. And it shouldn't be hit them over. It shouldn't only be hit them over the head with a hammer, do this or else, that makes them feel shame, because some of them do. It should be, okay. And I'm not suggesting that we take a 50-year-old coworker and hold their hand and give them a hug and say, this is what security is. I'm saying that if you at least address the humanity behind it, the fear and the worry and the concern, then you begin to tap into things like, trust, which is a fundamental to being an interconnected species. We rely on and depend on each other, which means that we need to trust each other for our survival. And most people trust by default, or all people trust by default. And so when the emails come in and the text messages and the phone calls and the people that they meet, they want to and they need to trust each other. And that's our baseline. And so when you kind of break that all down and explain that to your learners, then they begin to understand, okay, so I am at risk because I am biologically wired to trust. But this training that I'm getting, this phishing simulation, is meant to kind of interrupt that so I can see and understand and recognize risk effectively because of the way that I'm wired.
It's the 3-card Monty. If you don't know that it's a scam to begin with, then you try to pick the card and you're like, well, I saw it. It's there. How did I not get it? Right. Cause you haven't been educated. And I've had a few people who, do phishing simulation, penetration testing, have phishing technologies and stuff like that. And one of the things that I and as somebody who's knows a little bit about education, you have to teach them what's right before you start correcting them for doing something wrong. And I see that happens. So they're like, well, we have this phishing simulation and you failed. And they say, well, you never taught me what to look for or why to look for, or you never did the positive reinforcement on, hey, good job. Like, you have to teach the people before you can berate them, I think is that. And I think that's a failure on our part a lot of times.
Well, coming from an analytical engineering perspective, you're looking for, metrics, understanding like the results of this type of training, and knowing that, like we discussed, cybersecurity being less than 30 years old, the phishing simulation training itself being less than 20, it's not that old. It hasn't been around that long. In your face, human to human security discussions should be a dialogue. And most security awareness today is a lecture. It's being talked at, right? Versus having a conversation, again, a dialogue, which is, okay, here are all the issues that are out there. What are your concerns in that regard? How does it affect you? And then actually giving the learner an opportunity to express themselves in that regard, because they just like they're frankly afraid. I mean, people are just scared, and that's not that's not over exaggerating or being dramatic. Like, people they don't know what to do. They're worried.
Yeah, and I've gone into organizations as a security officer and just like, hey, it's just day one. I just need to set up meetings with each of these departments to get an idea of what assets look like and, what's the lay of the land. And people are like, am I in trouble? What do I need to prepare for anything? I'm like, no, man, I'm here to help. Like, I'm here to help secure the company. Like, you didn't do anything wrong. Like, they're genuinely afraid of the security person.
Yeah. And, like, part of what I do is when I get in front of a live audience, I'll start asking them questions, and then in response, they provide answers. And then I ask more questions. And in like 99% of the time when they walk in the room, right, they're all like, they're half on their phones. They're engaged. Like, they're kind of off in other places. They're all ADHD, right? Which I know that because I am too. And so, like, their arms are crossed, and they're like, okay, what's this guy going to tell me that I don't already know, or that I don't even need to know for that matter? And as you kind of engage them in a conversation, before you know it, like, their arms start to go down by their side, they put their phones down, and now they kind of lean in and they're starting to listen, because now you're starting to speak to them and where they're at and what involves their lives and their concerns, because you're asking them questions about, what's going on, and explaining to them, like, okay, this is actually what's happening. And before you know it, like, they want to know what to do. And now you've kind of broken down what security is and isn't. You've challenged their belief systems a little bit, which I think we should get into, because most people don't truly understand what risk management is. So, for example, like, one of the questions I asked them early on, and I ask a bunch, like, how many of you I use the same passcode across multiple accounts? and that question elicits, like, 90% of the audience is using the same passcode across multiple accounts, like, all the time. How many are you using two-factor authentication? If you get 15, 20% of the room to raise their hand, that's a lot, like, in their personal and professional life, And so how many of you are using a password manager? If you get 10% of the room to raise your hand, that's a lot, So they're not engaging in, like, basic 101 cyber hygiene, basic stuff. How many of you lock the doors to your home? Usually like 60 to 80%. How many of you have a home security system? Okay. And I asked this of the chief information security officer too. And if I get 20% of the room to say, yes, I have a home security system, that's a lot. Okay. And so then I begin to probe, okay, well, why don't you have a home security system? Like, why don't you? Like, you've made a decision, obviously, like, there's burglaries out there, and this is like, between 1.5 and 2 million burglaries every single year. So why don't you? Well, and I hear
low risk.
I live in a safe neighborhood. Well, if you watch baseball, you're either out or you're safe. The word safe is an absolute, which means that nothing bad has, does, or ever will happen here. So then I say, like, let's say you're watching the 6 o'clock news and something bad happens in a neighborhood somewhere. Something tragic happens, right? And like, they knock on the neighbor's door, and she's like half inside or outside her door, and they put the microphone in her face. And they say, so what do you think about what happened? What do they often say?
Yeah, it's always he was such a nice person, or this is such a safe neighborhood. You could leave your your door unlocked and nothing, whatever. It's always very innocuous. Like, oh, I can't believe it happened to us, right?
They always say the exact same thing because nobody ever wants to think or believe it's going to happen here ever.
Yeah.
We don't want to think. So what we do is we as humans, when we trust. And so as a result of that, like we also live in fear and worry. And we don't want to think and believe that these things can happen to us ever. We prefer and choose to function in a level of denial. Okay. And so when I asked the questions about, home security, like, why don't you have that home security system? The answer is often, well, because I don't want to live like that. And I say, well, what does that actually mean? And they say, well, I don't want to have to worry. I don't want to live in fear. I just want to be free. As if the acknowledgement of risk, of predators and thieves, of sociopaths and psychopaths, the acknowledgement of it by itself and seeing that keypad at your entranceway is going to be a constant reminder that there's bad people out there in risk, and therefore you're not free, that you're captive by them, as if you
really is, because it's a mindset thing. Like that's the whole value, or that's the whole illogical reason between like your head in the sand. Like if I'm acknowledging that I live somewhere that could be potentially robbed, then I'm going to think about that all the time. But if I go, no, this place is great, and I put my head in the sand, then I can live free. I mean, that's why people ignore their debt. That's why people ignore, don't go to the doctor when they should. Don't go to debt. They're just like, if I ignore it, it'll go away. I think it's a very human response to that.
Denial is wonderful. It's wonderful.
Right.
We live on a rock that's spinning 25,000 miles an hour, just hurtling through the universe, and we just don't worry about anything in that regard. We just function in denial. And that's what everybody, or most people, including some company officers, do, because we don't want to acknowledge risk at the level that we probably should, not to the point where we want to live in fear or worry, but just to the point where like we acknowledge risk, that we got this. Like every presentation I do, everybody walks in folding their arms. Within 20 minutes of asking these questions and pointing out the absurdities of what security is and isn't, like people's arms go down by their side, they lean in and they're listening. And one of the questions I asked them is like, and it's true, like I'm a guy that has 20 plus security cameras. So when most people hear, okay, the guy's got 20 security cameras, he must be what?
Yeah, you're paranoid, or you're crazy, or
paranoid.
You have something very, very valuable to protect.
Yeah, immediately paranoid. Okay, why? Because people equate security and paranoia in the exact same conversation. That is categorically wrong. Okay, paranoia is out of control, at odds with your universe, truly believing that others are out to get you. It is a mental health disease.
Right. But they're looking at, I think, and I don't disagree with you. There's a baseline of what most people, and this is not just security, this is everything. And it will depend on what part of the country and the world you go to. And it's not just security, it's a lot of things. But people have these ideas, these beliefs that like, this is in security, a reasonable amount of cameras in your home is probably 3 or 4.
Sure.
And anybody doing more than that must have a reason for that. Anybody ignore it, and they set all these precedents. So I think a lot of that that's where that reaction comes to. And we're a bunch of what's the word? Exaggerators too. So that they will definitely say paranoia, but they don't actually understand what they're saying for sure.
But there's a dichotomy there, because when people say like, I don't want to live like that, I don't want to have to worry, I don't want to live in fear, I don't want to be paranoid, they say, and so if that's what the baseline of what security is to most people, it's about worry and fear looking over your shoulder. Why would you ever want to embrace it? Why would you ever want to engage in it? And so, once the arms go down and people kind of lean in, they start paying attention, then once you've challenged their belief systems, once they recognize that security is actually a good thing, it's actually good for you. And like, it's actually like within your capacity, and it's easy and it's consumable. And if like you do these basic things in your own personal life, protect your identity, get a credit freeze, lock your doors, consider a home security system, talk to your daughter about personal protection before she goes off to school, because there's a 1 in 4 chance that she might be sexually assaulted. Have these uncomfortable conversations and be good at it, in such a way where it's tactful and engaging. And like you talk about all these things that like you've never really talked about in such a way that like it's meaningful. You go from basic security awareness, which is basically like, I call it like it's head-based. Intellectually, I understand risk. I understand these are the problems and these are the various solutions. That is what security awareness training is and generally does. And I find that generally security awareness training fails, because if that's where you start and stop, begin and end, then you're not really affecting the learner. You're not getting them where they're at, because what security awareness should be is, yes, I understand all these various risks. I understand these various solutions. And I understand that I, as a human, am at risk because of my defaults, my trust by default, because I see security as paranoia, because I look at it as a fear and worry thing. And I know now that if I get my own identity in order, if I, protect myself and my family, like I got this, I want this, I need this. I go from, looking at it as this intellectual head-based risk management thing to, you know what? I want this. I need this. This is important to me. It goes from being head-based to heart-based. And you evolve from security awareness to what I call security appreciation. You appreciate that the value that security has in both your personal life, then your professional life. It's similar to like on the airplane when a flight attendant is giving the safety instructions. What do they say about the mask? What do they say?
Yeah, you always put it on yourself before you help others, right? Yeah.
Of course, because you can't possibly help others if you can't breathe. And so you put it on yourself first. That way you're effective. And so when you address your employees, coworkers, people you're responsible for with security awareness training in such a way where like you address them first and foremost, we are a selfish or self-interested creature. And it's important to be selfish. The word selfish gets a bad rap, but it's important to be selfish. You have to get a good night's sleep. You have to nourish your body with good foods and fluids and so forth. You've got to take care of yourself first, or else you're incapable of taking care of anybody else for that matter. And you're not going to engage in anybody else's security until you have your own taken care of first. You understand it.
That's a great point, because it is, everybody goes to work, and there's a lot of people that probably don't like their jobs or wish they didn't have to have one. And it's like, here's one more thing we're asking you to do. Right.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, what's in it for me? All right, fine. I'll do this thing. I know sexual harassment's bad. I'll take this thing. I know I shouldn't sell company secrets. It's fine. Oh, I got to do this cybersecurity thing. It's good. So I do like that idea of making it, hey, taking care of yourself first, making something that's useful to you. And I have seen quite a few, of those educational ones that will do that training. It doesn't make the training any more exciting by any means. Like we could have an entire whole episode about how bad cybersecurity CBTs and stuff are. But that, like you had mentioned it, we trust people. And if you look at any of the Verizon, IBM, any of the data breach reports, most of the errors come from human error, right? Yeah. And most of the time it's just, Bob or Mary at the front desk getting a phone call, just trying to help out the other person, or the guy that walks in the door, just trying to do hey, I'm just trying to make it, and to take that and now say, well, we need you to shift your mindset to question this. Is this bad? Like now you're now you're taking somebody who doesn't want to live in a paranoid world, and now has to take that, well, I need to keep my hat on a swivel, and I am at work, and I need to think about things differently, and things do matter. So it's I like the idea of, take care of yourself first, and kind of getting the buy-in, that aspect of things.
And I don't know that can be communicated effectively via a talking head in a video or via animation. Yeah. Like I certainly don't raise my kids via
Yeah,
Zoom.
I didn't record. I didn't say, "Hey, here's how you do these things in life. Go watch the video I made." I
Yeah.
definitely don't do that.
Like it may sound a little, hokey to people, but there is don't get me wrong, there's a little bit of nurturing that goes along here.
Sure.
That might sound odd to people, but when there's worry, when there's fear, when there's uncertainty, right?
Well,
When there's
education is nurturing. I mean, that's what it is. We've gotten away from making this educational and making it something we have to do. Oh,
compliance.
Yeah.
That's it. And so like I am asking the audience to change your perspective a little bit. And that's a challenge, and I have friends that are, CIOs, CTOs, CISOs that are like, I need metrics. I need numbers. I need results. Is that how you talk to your spouse? Is that how you raise your kids? I mean, when you talk about life and you talk about their worries and their fears and things that happen and situations in the world and a school shooting and a sexual assault, do you say, "Oh, I want this training to have metrics"? No, it's gotta talk to them where they're at. And again, I'm not asking anybody to have to hug and kiss a 50-year-old employee. I'm asking you to just have a dialogue with them.
Yeah. Be a human being about it. Like, that's really what it comes down to. Be a human being about it.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
man.
Robert, dude, this is awesome, man. I've enjoyed talking to you. I feel like we could probably talk for hours on this.
Yeah.
But if those listening want to find you out on the interwebs, where's the best place for them to do that?
Well, you can Google Robert Siciliano if you can spell it. Beyond that, I'm at protectnowllc.com. Again, protectnowllc.com.
Outstanding, Robert. Well, thank you so much, man. This has been fantastic.
Hey, I appreciate you. I love what you're doing here. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks for listening. Be sure to like and subscribe. Follow Wil and the podcast on LinkedIn /Wil Klu. Visit Wil Klu ME for information on services he offers to help your cyber or tech business grow. Until next time, Sinaculator.